this one could get me going. I'm going to have to take some deep breaths on this one. Ooh, keep it professional. Keep it professional. Importance of avoiding heel strike on the court. I got to keep it professional here. So I see this all the time on social media. First, let me give my answer. Extremely overrated. All of a sudden, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, I started seeing this on social media. People saying that like all these injuries happen from a heel strike. And they'll show like somebody tearing their Achilles and like the heel drops to the ground. And yeah, that's when the foot is back behind the hip. Like you wouldn't want a heel strike when the foot is behind the hip. Now, when the foot is under the hip, things change. When the foot is in front of the hip, you're almost always going to get a heel strike, or at least a full foot landing. So there's a difference. Like Sydney McLaughlin runs with a full foot landing. Her heel is on the ground compared to other runners that are more on the forefoot. They're some of the best endurance runners of all time that the heel does hit the ground. Now, in sports, like in an approach jump, there's always a heel strike. And we're talking about the heel landing first and then rolling to midfoot and then rolling to the ball of the foot. Deceleration, right? Anything that involves deceleration where the foot is out in front of the body. So this happens on a approach 2-foot jump. This definitely happens on an approach 1-foot jump even more. And then if I'm running full speed and I go to decelerate, that heel is always going to hit first. This is 100% natural. There's never, ever, ever in life been a good athlete who avoids a heel strike. You can't find me examples of any of them. Michael Jordan jumped with a heel strike. LeBron James jumps with a heel strike. Deion Sanders decelerated with a heel strike. Like every single good athlete ever. You couldn't. It's actually, if you tried to avoid a heel strike, you wouldn't be able to. And if you did try, it would actually not only decrease performance, it would make it more dangerous because you just took out a natural break and now you're landing just on your forefoot, like smaller surface area now has to handle 8 times body weight. And so that's how like people really roll their ankle is not having a good full foot contact, trying to change directions just on the ball of the foot instead of having that full foot down. Having the heel down helps with balance. So just go stand on one leg, your heel is going to be down and your balance. Now lift off, come to the ball of the foot, try to balance, can't do it. So any move that requires more balance, you're going to need the heel. Certain like low running speeds, like if I'm a basketball player coming off a pick and roll, I'm not trying to blow by somebody, I'm trying to make a read. You're going to see a heel strike because that heel strike buys you a longer ground contact, that buys you time, that buys you more time to make decisions. Now, where this idea comes from is people will watch sprinters, and most sprinters are always on the balls of the feet. And yes, for sure, you don't have the time to heel strike first in sprinting. If you're walking, right, normal gait, you're going to have a heel strike. At some point when it turns from a walk to a slow jog, naturally, you're probably still going to have a heel strike. And then at a certain speed, you transition over to more of a flat foot landing. And then at a certain speed, you transfer over to more of a forefoot. And then sprinting, of course, you're going to be all forefoot. So to say that it's bad is just so ridiculous, right? And then what you'll hear from there's kind of like these movement cults online that say you can never like strike your heel. A lot of times they'll be like, well, when people tear their ACL, it starts with a heel strike. How about the other billion reps that you saw before that where there was a heel strike and there was no torn ACL? So saying that is like saying, I know a friend that got severely injured in a car accident, therefore I don't drive a car anymore, right? Like, and actually because doing everything on the balls of the feet is actually more dangerous in terms of deceleration and change of direction, it's actually more like saying, my friend got hurt in a car, therefore I don't drive a car, so how do I get around? I actually bought a motorcycle. Oh, okay. You bought a motorcycle. So you just traded one thing for something else that's actually way more dangerous. And that's essentially what you're doing if you're trying to avoid a heel strike during deceleration, especially during like an approach jump. Imagine bringing that much speed and striking the foot out in front of the body and just trying to like tippy toe into that and just stay on the ball of the foot. We're talking about Jones fractures. We're talking about significantly increased ankle sprains. We're talking about way more stress on the Achilles. Man, I mean, you'd have so many more torn Achilles by trying to get off the heels in sports. So again, like if the foot is behind you, the heel normally won't be down unless you're T-stepping. So like think about a negative step. That's the situation I'm talking about. A T-step is where you actually open up and point the toe out. So my left foot is here, my right foot is pointed out this way. That is the foot back behind the body, but it's actually not, because you're opening up your entire body. So it's actually more like a lateral push-off. It's the same thing as a lateral slide from like the hip and from the ankle perspective. It's just this foot stayed straight, this foot opened up. So that's one of the safer ways. Like if you're backpedaling and then you got to sprint, instead of putting all that stress on the Achilles with a negative step, you would want a T-step, open up, and then push out of that. Now, you can't always T-step, and that's why the negative step is essential, and we got to build durability there. So if you just caught a basketball, you can't T-step to go forward. You would negative step to go forward. And then I've heard skills trainers and these movement cults say, because KD and Kobe and anybody who's tore their Achilles, they do a negative step, you got to avoid that. Come on, bro. Nobody's avoiding the negative step. It's built into us because it's faster. It is way faster. And even if you trained it every day in practice, in the game, when you actually need speed in a competitive environment, you would do it. And then because you weren't practicing it, you don't have any durability in that position. So that's why we do these like plyometrics where I put the foot back behind the hip. Like we go to that negative, or we go to that negative step angle and we like pulse there, and I load them with weight there, and we do hops, and then we gradually increase it, and then eventually I do full speed negative steps. You got to build durability in that specific position. Now in that negative step with the toe forward, the foot back behind the hip, I would not want the heel to collapse. That's when I would want a stiff ankle and I would want to pop off the balls of the feet. Because with the foot back behind, now the length placed on the calf and the Achilles is enormous, and the peak forces are so high, that's when a tear could happen. So yeah, you want to train a stiff contact when the foot's back behind, but then they try to apply that to every ground contact. And with the foot underneath the hip, we're not at those same lengths. So the heel could be down. And with the foot out in front of the body, especially when I need to decelerate, the calf and Achilles are nowhere near the same length. And so you could handle all that peak braking force with the heel down, and it's not an injury risk.